Good evening, everybody. Good to see everybody come to this meeting. It's a good crowd. Let me start off by saying that our meetings are now live streamed. If you don't want your face on the TV, then you best remove yourself. If you stay, you're given permission. Also, under Resolution 2006-17, anybody wishing to speak on any items, you have 3 minutes. Let me stand for the moment of silence, and then we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mayor Gibson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Linlaw.
Here.
Commissioner McGee.
Here.
Commissioner Gazzagano.
Here.
Commissioner Hyde.
Here.
I just want to remind everybody to turn their phones off so we don't have any interruptions. First thing on the,
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, just for the record, just to let you all know, the city attorney is on the phone joining us for the meeting, and also we have our planner, Graham Long, who will be presenting. He's also on the phone.
okay. First thing is agenda modification. Are there any, commissioners? Okay. The first thing, we have a presentation, a proclamation to Derry Lee Evans Sr. Evans family in the house? No? Well, I'm gonna go ahead and read it. Proclamation honoring former mayor Derry Lee Evans Sr. on his passing. Whereas the City Commission of the City of Oak Hill has learned with profound sorrow of the death of Honorable Derry Lee Evans Sr., former mayor of the City of Oak Hill. Whereas Derry Lee Evans Sr. was for many years a leader in Oak Hill in public life and distinguishing himself for his career and devotion to the interest and growth of the City of Oak Hill, and won himself the respect, affection of the public for his service to the community, not only as a private citizen, but as a public servant. Whereas his integrity, ability, devotion to his city, its citizens, and his family enable him to make substantial and valuable contribution to the City of Oak Hill and the County of Volusia. Now therefore be it resolved by the mayor and the City Commission of the City of Oak Hill that by the death of Honorable Derry Lee Evans Sr., the City of Oak Hill has been and has benefited of one of its most prominent figures, and the citizen of the City of Oak Hill deprived of one of its outstanding mayors, and the community as a whole deprived of a beloved and distinguished citizen. And be it further resolved that a copy of this proclamation, suitable embossed, be sent to the family for the late Derry Lee Evans Sr. in testimony of the sympathy of the City of Oak Hill in their bereavement.
Amen. Good man.
Yes. Okay, auditors. Carr, Riggs, and Ingram.
All right. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So my name is Lindsay Aviles. I'm the partner on the audit for the city's year-end September 30th, 2023. If you remember last summer, the city went out for RFP and Carr, Riggs, and Ingram was selected as the auditor beginning with this fiscal year end of 2023. So we started our audit, tried to start it back in October, but then the city went through a lot of turnover in employees, and Jerome wasn't even here yet. So we ended up finishing up the audit in June, like the latest possible up until the state deadline, but everything is finished at the state deadline, so that's good. But I did hand out some statements for you. I was going to go over the bound copy first, and then there's a stapled paper I'll go over after that. I apologize to everyone. I had no idea there'd be such a turnout today, and this is going to go way over everyone's head, I'm sure. There's a lot to go over. I still need to at least go over the basics, but and I don't have handouts for everybody, sorry. There will be a PDF, though, that is always posted on the city website. So first I'm going to go to page 5, if you're in the bound copy. Page 5 is our independent auditor's report. One thing to point out, the city does report 2 bases of accounting. There's a government-wide accounting, and then there's the general fund. The general fund is how the city does most of its day-to-day operations and budgets at the fund level. So we have to opine on both statements. At the government-wide level, we issued a qualified opinion. That is, an unmodified is like a perfect opinion, but the government-wide is qualified because the city does not record other post-employment benefits liability. We don't know what the amount is because the city hasn't engaged an actuary for a few years. I think the city engaged an actuary back in 2018, and I couldn't find any records of an actuary since then. So basically, this means we don't know what the liability is and if it's material or not. We just know it's excluded. It could be 20,000, it could be 40,000, it could be 100,000. I don't know because an actuary calculates it. So there is an alternative calculation method that the city could do. We provided one to the city administrator, but in the interest of time, and it's not an easy calculation, we agreed to just push this off to 2024, possibly hiring an actuary. We can help city management with their options on that. But basically, we don't know what the amount is. Also wasn't recorded last year. So we do have an unmodified, which is a good opinion over the general fund level, though, which is great. So if you skip forward to page 19, this is where the financial statements actually start. As I said, there's 2 bases of accounting. I'm going to go over the fund level first because that's going to make more sense on day-to-day operations. So page 21, if you could go to that page. This is the balance sheet of the general fund. The city only has one fund, the general fund. So the balance sheet has your assets and liabilities similar to like a for-profit corporation. So I'll go over some of the major changes in 2023 since the prior year, 2022. First of all, your cash and cash equivalents at year end ended at 1.9 million. The prior year balance was 1.4 million, so that was an increase of 500,000 since the prior year. The main reason for that increase is because if you go a couple line items down to due from other governments, there was a decrease in your due froms because the state grants got paid to the city, so your cash increased as a result of that. Your due from other governments ended at 325,000. Last year it was 1.6 million. There's a lot of grants going on, so 1.3 million was collected throughout the 2023 year. If you go down to the liabilities section, the first item, accounts payable, had a big change. It ended at 889,000. Last year it was 1.6 million, so it actually decreased 701,000. A lot of it had to do with just some sewer construction projects and the bills that were payable in 2022 as opposed to 2023. Couple more line items down, retainage payable ended at 286,000. There was no retainage recorded last year. However, in our audit procedures, we determined that there should have been some retainage recorded last year. So you will see later in my presentation, there is a prior period adjustment because the prior audit had a couple of things that were missing that all kind of collectively became a material amount. If you go down to the very bottom, one item from the last item, total fund balance ended at 1.1 million. Last year it was 1.5 million, so you had a decrease of 411,000 in the fund level fund balance. Again, a lot of that had to do with the capital projects and the spending of that. And the basis of the general fund takes those expenditures and makes them an expense in the current year. However, at the government-wide level, you capitalize those and they are on your balance sheet. But as I said, there's 2 different bases of accounting. So at the fund level, it looks like fund balance went down, but it's just you're spending all that money on construction of bettering the city, if that makes sense. If you go to page 23, this is like the income statement of the general fund. So you have revenues at the top, expenditures, and then some other financing sources. So your revenues, the first line item, taxes, obviously one of the larger of the revenues. You had 1.3 million in taxes. Last year was 1.1 million, so an increase of 192,000. That mostly had to do with just taxable assessed value increasing in 2023 compared to 2022. The next line item, intergovernmental, that is where you have a lot of the state revenues as well as grants from state revenues. So you had 4.1 million this year. Last year, 4.6 million. A lot of that had to do with the grant timing. You earn the money of the grants when you spend it. And so there was more going on, a little bit more in 2022 than 2023. But either way, in both years, there's a lot of grant revenues going on. If you go down to the expenditures, total expenditures ended at 6.7 million. Last year was 5.3 million. So there's actually a large increase in expenditures of 1.4 million. If you go up one item to capital outlay, 4.2 million, almost 4.3 million, that's where most of your big expenditures for the fiscal year 23 are. And so that's the water sewer CIP projects for the most part. So again, like I said, you expense it in the current year at the fund level, but at the government-wide level, as I'll show you in the next report, you're capitalizing those and they go on your balance sheet. If you go down to the next section, other financing sources, loan proceeds, this is another weird way that at the fund level you account for something differently. So the SRF loan, the state revolving loan, when you draw down money from the loan, you record it as loan proceeds, kind of like almost a revenue. Instead of at the government-wide level, it goes as a liability because it's a loan that has to be paid back. So it's another way that the two methods just differ. It's kind of different. So you had 629,000 that was drawn down on the loan in 23. Third line item from the bottom, prior period adjustment, says C note 2. So note 2 is on page 35 and 36. I'll go over that in a little bit. There was a change of 326,000. There's a couple of things going on. It had to do with the retainage payable and a few other things. And so that's where we're adjusting. Last year's ending balance was 1.5 million, but we're adjusting it. It should have been 1.19 million. And then you end at 1.1 million fund balance for this year. Any questions so far? I'll go to the government-wide level next. Okay, so if you go to page 19, back up a couple pages, it's called the statement of net position. That's the government-wide level. So a lot of these numbers are gonna be exactly the same as the general fund. However, if you look about 6 or 7 line items down from the top, capital assets, there's a big section of capital assets. This is something that is different. You have 9.9 million recorded in land, construction in progress, buildings, improvements other than buildings, things like that. There was a large increase this year. Last year it was 5.8 million. You had about 4 million added to it, most of it in that construction in progress line item, for a total of just under 10 million in those assets. If you go down to the liability section, same thing. Most of those numbers are the same as the fund level. However, you'll see a non-current liabilities section. So this is all stuff that's only recorded at the government-wide level according to standards. So you have 3 main items: compensated absences of 10,000, which is like employee PTO that's accrued if they terminate and it gets paid out. Then the biggest one is notes payable. So you have the SRF loan, and there's another capital improvement note in there. So that totals 1.2 million. And then net pension liability is the Florida Retirement System pension. And that totaled 394,000 at 2023 of a liability. So you ended the year total net position at the government-wide level of 9.5 million, which was an increase of 3.4 million from last year of 6.1 million. Mostly, again, like I said, the capital assets that were added. Any questions so far on that? Those are the main differences between the two methods of accounting. Next, I'll get into the footnotes. The footnotes start on page, I'm not going to go over them in detail. On page 27, they start. So the note 1 is a summary of significant accounting policies. It describes a lot of what I just said about the different methods of accounting between the fund and government-wide and what policies the city follows. All the policies are in line with the government accounting standards, so that's good. But I'll go to page 35. If you can flip there. Actually, top of page 36. Top of page 36 has the summary of the prior period restatements that we discovered in our audit. So there's 3 main things going on. Some of them affect government-wide only, some of them affect general fund. It just depends on the basis of accounting and the rules. So you'll see a 1, 2, 3 in the middle of that page. Number 1 is that in the prior year, there was revenue and receivables at the government-wide level that were understated by 956,000 of grant revenues, because the revenues were actually, when we got the support in our audit, that we realized that the revenues were actually earned in fiscal year 2022, but the cash was received in 2023. you should have recorded it in 2022 when earned and then recorded a receivable at 2022. So there's a $956,000 prior period adjustment recorded there. Number two, in the prior year, there was retainage payable. Like I said, there was an adjustment to record the payable this year for 2023, but we also found that in 2022, there was payables missing of $137,000. So those construction pay-apps, like I said, there's a lot of construction in progress. So you're gonna be getting construction pay-apps. Those always have retainage kind of separated out of what's being retained, a 10% retainage or so. And that should be recorded as a liability at year end. So that's where that came from. And then number three, in the prior year, there was the SRF loan. When we got the support for the loan, the beginning balance didn't tie to the prior year audit. When we looked into it, we noted that there's just a difference of $188,000. We're not sure if it was ran through current year additions of the loan or what. So we just trued it up since it was a large amount and restated the beginning balance of the loan. Because that's what the state's website said, and they had that loan balance, and you couldn't really argue with it. So that is a summary of what's going on with the prior period adjustments. They've all been corrected now, so going forward, like that's not an issue, and anything that needed to be accrued or recorded as a payable has been for this year, and so the city can easily keep those methods going forward. If you go next to page 38, this is where there's a lot of detailed notes on what's on the balance sheet. Top of page 38 has all your details of capital assets, so you can see the details of like construction in progress had the biggest increase of almost $4 million this year. If you go to page 39 and 40, this details out your long-term debt of the SRF loan and the capital improvement note series and what the future payments are. You have future payments going into like 2029 and 2048, depending on the loan. And so that SRF loan, there'll probably be more that's drawn down in 2024. So that will continue to change as the city spends that SRF money. And then if you get into page 42, and there's several pages, this is retirement plan. That's the Florida retirement system. These are all required footnotes. We get these from the Auditor General's website, but it is specific to the city of Oak Hill, all these numbers. But if you go to the required supplemental information on page 50, I kind of like to go over this a little bit better. If you go to page 50, there is a required schedule of the past 10 years of the Florida retirement system. And so you can see on the far left column that the city's proportionate share of the liability was $285,000 at 2023. In 2022, it was a little bit lower at $247,000. 2021 and 2020 was weird because it like dipped for everybody in 2021 because after COVID and the interest rates and everything, it like swung the numbers because there was a lot of investment gains, so it dropped the liabilities. There's an inverse relationship. So a lot of cities and towns have some weird numbers there with 2020 and 2021. But overall, you can go all the way back to 2014 and see that the liabilities continue to grow. It's the same story for all the cities and towns in the state of Florida. But you can see the details of that. Any questions so far? I'm kind of done going over notes at a high level. I was going to get into the reports in the back and the single audit with the state grants. Anything? Okay. All right, so if you go to page 55, this is our independent auditor's report over internal control over the financial statements. As part of our audit, we are required to look at the city's internal controls. We don't specifically audit all the internal controls because that's a whole separate thing, but we do look at the city's internal controls, and a lot of the findings I'll talk about soon have to do with how the city can improve their internal controls, like relates to this letter. If you go to page 57, this is the schedule of expenditures of state of Florida financial assistance. So if you have over $750,000 of expenditures of state grants or federal grants, so looked at separately, you have to have what's called a single audit, which means we have to specifically audit the grant. Depends on how many grants you have. In your case, you had 2 grants that were really large that were state of Florida, so we had to audit both of those grants separately. If you had spent $750,000 or more in federal, you could have had a whole separate schedule called a CFA that's only federal awards, but in your case, you only had state for this year. So we just have this one schedule of state of Florida financial assistance. And so you have your grants listed there. You had $3.35 million that was spent this year. And if you go to page 59, this is our single audit report basically. Now, so there was two grants that were audited. One is CSFA 37.039, which is water quality restoration, and then the other one is the 37.077. So the 37.039 that I first mentioned, we did issue a qualified opinion over that, and I'll get into the specifics. The main thing is that when we were getting the support for what was spent on the grant, one of the reimbursement requests had a duplicate request that was already requested as a reimbursement on a different grant. So that automatically makes it unallowable. However, we agreed to not remove it from the schedule because the city had other expenditures that they never put on a reimbursement request. So there's still legit expenditures if this state grantor was to come back and say, oh, this was already duplicated. And I don't think they would have a problem with it. We have experience with auditing these grants. I don't think it's that big of a deal. You do have legit other expenditures that qualify. So left the numbers as is, but it's just that documentation of what was submitted was out of compliance. If you go to page 63, this summarizes our schedule of findings and question and costs. So as you can see, towards the bottom of the page, the two grants that we audited, 37.039, 37.077, those are state of Florida catalog numbers. We don't make those up. So that's just what the grants are. And then there's a compliance supplement, and there are things we have to audit specific to those grants. And then if you go to page 64, this is where we get into our findings that we had with the audit. I'll try to go over them briefly. There's a lot to read here, so I'm not going to read it word for word. So the very first finding at the top of page 64 has to do with the schedule of expenditures of state financial assistance. It was materially misstated. Remember earlier how I said the revenues were recorded as a prior period adjustment. There was revenues that were incorrectly related to 2022. So that had something to do with this. So when we started to audit the schedule that was given to us, we realized there's a bunch of revenues in there that actually related to the prior fiscal year. We actually had the city administrator reach out to the prior auditors and notify them that we think their schedule was materially misstated. That's all you're required to do. What they do with it, I'm not sure if they even responded to him. He CC'd me on the email, but it's up to them what they want to do with it. So, but the city, all they need to do is just notify him, and that's what you guys did. So you did your part. It's something you wouldn't have known. I'm not sure what happened, but overall, that's what this finding is, 2023-002. The second one at the bottom of the page, segregation of duties. This is a finding that's been actually in the prior audit reports for many years. And I think it has to do with the city just doesn't have a lot of employees. So it's hard to have proper segregation of duties when you only have a few people doing financial duties. I have worked with other towns and cities that are small with like 2 or 3 employees, and we have the same issue, but we're able to get around it and work with them. If we can get city commission or mayor or like other people involved in the review approval process, then that gets you to segregation of duties. So I think we're able to work with this and finally get rid of it in the coming years. So it's just been a finding for many years. I'm not sure if anyone's ever helped the city to try to look at it, figure out how to solve it. So we're going to try to work with them on that. Top of page 65, lack of payroll documentation. This had to do a lot with the fact that city had so much turnover in employees. There was records just not in the HR files, couldn't find review and approval of payrolls, things like that. We were able to ultimately get support from the payroll provider that the city uses and get comfortable with the numbers. It's mostly just lack of documentation, and the current management couldn't find where the prior management put things and stuff like that. So we're still able to get comfortable with the numbers. It's just we need to make sure going forward that the city is putting things properly in the HR files and it's easy to find. Bottom of page 65, lack of documentation over revenue. It's the same issue. The city was having trouble finding documentation of ACH approvals and things like that of revenues coming in. Page 66, section 3 of the state project findings. This is where we get into specific grant findings. So the first one, allowable expenses, material weaknesses. This is what I was already talking about earlier, that there was an expenditure that was already claimed under another contract as a reimbursement request. So that's what caused that one grant to have a qualified opinion. So that's where this finding came from. Page 67, top of page 67, one of the grants, the Clean Water State Revolving Fund grant, specifically requires grantees to budget debt payments. And when we looked at the future budget of 2024, we didn't see those debt payments scheduled. So you all still have time. You can budget those debt payments and fix this going forward. But when we looked at it, we just didn't see those debt payments budgeted. So just make sure that's just something that specific grant requires. Bottom of page 67, this one has to do with, again, a specific grant requirement where the city needs to file quarterly reports. They have to be filed within 30 days at the end of each quarter, and so some of them weren't sent timely, and also some of them just didn't have evidence of review and approval. So again, it's a grant requirement. And that's it for the single audit findings. And then on page 69, there's some lesser important findings that I wanted to go over that we put in our independent auditor's management letter. This is a letter that is required by the state of Florida, the Florida Auditor General. So I'm sure you've seen it before. Every city and town has to report this. So if you go to page 70, bottom of page 70, lack of documentation of meeting minutes. So again, this had to do with, I think, the change in administration and employees at the city. There were a lot of minutes that we just couldn't find the meeting minutes, and I couldn't tell like what got approved, what didn't get approved, things like that. I have noted in 2024, it is a lot better. So like going forward after this fiscal year, we're trying to audit. I do see minutes now posted consistently, so that's good. But yeah, there was the minutes we just couldn't find. Like I was specifically looking to see if a contractor was approved for something, and I thought I knew where it was, what month it was, and I couldn't find minutes to prove it. So we do look at every minutes that we can get a hold of when we do an audit, not only for the fiscal year, but up until our audit report date, so into 2024. Page 71, budget not posted timely. So last year's 23 budget, the final was never posted. You just need to make sure there are state statutes. It's 189.016 that has all these specific requirements of when the budget needs to get posted, how often, like when it needs to be advertised, things like that, and when the final needs to be posted. So just make sure that there's documentation of that. The problem with that is that if it gets posted and then somehow the website has an issue and it goes down and it's no longer posted, you can't really tell. Like if I come in 6-7 months later, you can't really prove to me that it was posted at the time. So if you could keep any sort of documentation just in case to prove that we followed state statutes. I'm not sure if that's happened. So bottom of page 71, lack of documentation of our bid procedures. This had a lot to do with the lack of meeting minutes. I was trying to look and see when a bid was approved. In one instance, there was a bid. In the minutes, it said that a certain contractor was approved, and then when I looked in the detail of expenditures, a different contractor was doing the work. So I thought maybe there was in some missing minutes, like something happened and the contractor backed out. I couldn't tell. So just making sure if you have like bid files and you keep all of those records, other things like bid tabulation, when you have 3 or 4 bids and you are comparing them based on the prices and qualifications, things like that. If you're keeping records of that, then I can come in easily later and just see that you followed your bid policies. So middle of page 72, building permits carryover fund balance. This is a new statute that came out a few years ago, and a lot of cities have this as a comment now because it just kind of came out of nowhere and no one was prepared for it. So if you have a carryover balance in building permits, averaging the last 4 years is kind of written weird the way the statute is. Then if there's an excess, you're supposed to use up the excess or rebate or reduce fees. I see most cities reducing fees to make up for the difference. Rebating, I've never seen anyone rebate. I don't know how you could possibly go back, like how many years back do you go? I don't know. And then the other thing that many cities are doing is just spending money on legit, like building permits, like building a new building permit building or things like that, or getting software and computers and upgrading stuff that's specific for building permits. So those are the two ways. A lot of cities, this comment's just going to be out there for a while because you can't really fix it like very quickly. So it's understandable. Bottom of page 72, the time off policy. So the city had a policy of paid time off saying that when employees terminate, if they terminate, they do not have PTO paid out. But then when we were testing, we found 2 employees that did have their PTO paid out. So I wasn't sure if, again, missing minutes, I couldn't tell if a policy had been revised. We thought we saw in some minutes discussion that there was possibly going to be a policy revised, but I don't know if that ended up happening because I couldn't find the meeting minutes. So I think maybe it was the city's intention to change that. Because then the other thing, if you get to the page 73, you have this comment of accruing compensated absences. So the city is accruing for these balances as if they're going to pay out the money. So like the policies aren't matching up. So if there is a policy not to pay out people, then you don't need the accrual of compensated absences, and vice versa. If you're accruing for them, you need to revise the policy to match it. The accrued compensated absences, as of now, the policy is saying you don't need to. We thought it was fine to leave that $10,000 accrued because there is another GASB coming out at the end of 2025 that's going to make you accrue anyway. So probably best to just leave it. There's also going to be sick time that has to be accrued. The GASB is coming out with 101. It's a whole new standard. So it's going to change anyway. But I can talk to Jerome about that specifically and how it's going to affect the city. So those are kind of interrelated. And that is it for findings. At the very end, there's the compliance with investment policies. This is another state statute required thing. And we found the city to be in compliance with state statutes in that regards. So any questions on the audit report or findings?
I have one.
Yes.
Have you been advised that Volusia County is going to make the payments on that loan?
No. Mm-mm.
You weren't?
No. Mm-mm. There's, I think, so some of the loan is going to have, I think what you're saying is,
No, the Volusia County agreed that they are leasing the pipes from the city of Oak Hill and will pay the loan payment.
all of them or just some of it? Because we could see in documentation that some of the loan is
Well, the
going to be.
$4 million loan.
Yeah, there's two different pieces of that $4 million. And some of it we could tell is going to be just revenue and it's going to be waived, like you're not going to have to pay it back.
Well, yeah, it was the type of a loan that 80% of it is
Yeah.
forgiven.
Yes, yes. Mhm.
And that forgiven part doesn't count.
Yeah.
Volusia County's going to pay the remaining 20%
Okay,
for
so
the city.
there's an agreement for that, then we need to see it for sure.
Well,
'cause we
you
did
know,
not
that
see
really
that.
strikes me that you weren't given that. Of course, I wasn't asked, but we'll get it to you.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. Wait,
That's
there was
the
no
only thing.
mention in the prior audit of that either, but maybe it's something that happened
You know,
more
and
recently.
paying that PTO time,
Yeah.
the prior administrator said that she could be paid because she was a contract employee.
I don't believe she was a 1099
And I'm not a
employee.
lawyer, so,
Yeah, I don't. So she had her own agreement, and I looked at it in her HR file.
yes.
It did not specifically say anything about she would be paid out PTO. Again, though, it was an old contract. I don't know if it was revised and it wasn't in her HR file, and I didn't see
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But I was looking for it because, yeah. But it wasn't. There was another person too, not just her. So
No.
that's why I'm like, I can't tell who's supposed to be paid, who's not, and
Yeah.
if a policy was changed.
Yeah.
So. Next, the stapled report. I can go over that real quick. So this is required communications. We just kind of go over what the auditor is responsible for, what's the city responsible for, if we had any difficulties in our audit. And then the main thing is if you go to page 13, that just summarizes our audit adjustments. So all these I've already talked about. It has to do with the findings that I've mentioned. So we have the adjustments for the prior period, misstatements, adjusting the revenues, adjusting the receivables, adjusting retainage, and things like that. So it details all those adjustments. Jerome has those. And as far as I know, they should be posted already to the city's books. If you go to page 15, in the middle of that page, there's two adjustments that we passed on. We didn't request the city to make those adjustments. One is the compensated absences because there's just confusion over if they should be paid out or not. And we weren't confident enough that they shouldn't. So we thought it was fine to leave it. And then the other one is just there were some capital expenditures that were recorded in a non-capital account. It was small. So there's, in the grand scheme of $4 million of capital expenditures, was very little. So we thought it was fine to just leave that as is. So And that is it.
Well, I just want to say, in all the years I've sat here, this is the most complete audit. And I
Exactly.
think,
It was a lot of work.
Exactly.
no, I'm serious. There are things in here that the prior auditing firm never mentioned.
Really.
Never.
Yeah.
It makes me think that had anything been wrong, this commission wouldn't know it
Yeah.
because of the presentation that they gave.
It seemed fine. Yeah.
Yeah, yours is
They just had that
unbelievable.
segregation of duties and then a budget comment.
more detail.
That's all they had.
Yes, yes, thank you.
So I am in the camp of like working with management and the commission and fixing these problems, and I'm all for it. So whatever we can do to help Jerome and Tasha, like I'm fine with it. I am always available all year long for questions. Luckily, there's no huge GASB standards coming out soon that you have to deal with. There's that compensated absences one, but that's not till 2025. So I think we can focus on fixing a lot of this, and I think they already are on a really good start to fixing a lot of this.
Good.
And so it was just difficult. Like he came in and the year was done already, and Tasha too. So they didn't even know what had happened. So, and then as you said, if the prior auditors didn't report it to you, how do you know that something needs to be
But there's a problem.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay.
All right. Thanks, everybody. I know it was a lot.
Okay, let's move on to citizens' participation, non-agenda items. Tosh?
Julian Welch.
Good evening, Drew Ann Welch, 222 Cypress Avenue. I am here representing your museum volunteers. We are so excited. Things are moving along at the museum. It's really looking good. We are having, and everyone, we've got so many people here. If you're interested in volunteering at the museum, please come on August 1st, starting at 5 o'clock. It's a 2-hour meet and greet. Come in. We want volunteers to come in, meet us, see what we're doing, get lots of people involved, so that we can get the museum open and running and everyone really excited about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew.
Thank you.
At the VIA.
Thanks for all you guys are doing in
Yeah.
Thank you, yeah.
Next,
That's it, sir.
that's it on agenda? Okay, let's move on to consent agenda. Commission meeting minutes, July the 8th, 2024.
I'll make a recommendation to accept the minutes for July 8th, 2024.
I'll second that.
Second it.
Now, we have a motion and a second. Discussion from the commissioners? None? Call for the vote?
Mayor Gibson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Linlaw.
Yes.
Commissioner McGee.
Yes.
Commissioner Gatagano.
Yes.
Commissioner Hyatt.
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay, next, city administrative reports, none. Unless you have something to add, Mr. Adams.
No, sir.
Okay. Next, city attorney, ordinance, ballot questions, second reading. Ordinance 2024-03.
So I'll just read this into the record. An ordinance of the city of Oak Hill, Florida, adopted pursuant to Florida statute sections 101.161 and 166.031, setting forth proposed amendments to the city's charter to be submitted to the voters of the city at the general election on November 5th, 2024, providing for ballot summaries and titles for each proposed amendment, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date. So these were the questions that the attorney had provided to you at the first reading. So this is now.
These are the same ones, they're
Same ones.
unaltered.
Correct.
Correct.
And if you approve them, then I can send them off to the supervisor of elections to have them placed on the ballot for the elections.
I make a motion, we accept and pass the ordinance for the adoption of the amendments.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion from the commission.
Nope.
None? Call for the vote?
Mayor Gibson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Linlaw.
Yes.
Commissioner McGee,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzagano,
Yes.
Commissioner Hyatt.
Yes.
Next up is the ordinance, animals in the park. Ordinance number 2024-04.
An ordinance of the city of Oak Hill, Volusia County, Florida, an ordinance of, no, that's, sorry. An ordinance of the city of Oak Hill, Volusia County, creating section 28-27, animals prohibited in public parks, providing for terms and conditions, providing for conflicting ordinances, authorizing inclusion in code and providing an effective date, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. That needs to get corrected.
I make a motion that we accept ordinance number 2024-04.
We don't get any say.
Yes,
Wait,
Will.
you get your point.
Wait,
Second.
please wait.
You know I got a big mouth.
That's okay. Is there a second?
I did.
Second. Okay. Now, public participation. I'd like to hear from them before the commission.
Mike Long.
Thank you. Mike Arman, Magdalene. I think the reason for this was horses crossing the public park to get into the river. I want to make a suggestion that we add 3 words to this ordinance, which will make everybody happy. And that would be animals over 200 pounds prohibited in public parks, which means we can still walk our dogs and there's no horses.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I may be wrong. I may be wrong.
Okay, people, I realize there's 2 opinions. Let everybody have their say and don't get riled up. Let's wait to see what happens, please.
And I have no objection to animals in the park.
Thank you.
Amen.
Next.
Geraldine Clinton.
Hi, Geraldine Clinton, Clinton Ranch Road, Oakville. I am here on behalf of myself and all the other people here who have animals, horses.
Geraldine, speak up,
horses
please.
and dogs.
Yeah, bring the mic, there you go.
Okay. I'd like to know why you're putting an ordinance on the horses first off, because that they have been there for years without any incidents. And now you have in your ordinance that there might be conflicts. Can you answer that?
No,
No.
we don't have, we're not required to.
You're not
This is your,
required.
this, excuse me. That's the rules, people. I don't make them. But I will enforce them. She has the right to make her opinion known to this commission. We will get to the answers if the commission wants to respond.
Okay. Well, then my next question is going to be about dogs. Why are they going to be omitted from the park? I mean, prohibited from the public park, providing the terms and conditions and providing for the conflict of ordinances. These animals are not a bad thing to have. A lot of people have dogs, they want to walk them there. So I'm here to say that. But I want to get back to the horses and find out why, that you're putting a ban on, ordinance on the horses that have been there for swimming for years and years and never caused any incidents, but you now say they could. That's my 2 main problems. Okay,
Thank you.
welcome.
Next.
Danya DeWeese.
Next minute. This golden age got rusty. Hello. I'm Danya Deweese, 243 Adams Street, Oak Hill, of course. I too can't understand why we can't have animals that people are responsible for. They're either reins and a bridle, and they're controlled. And dogs, as long as people are cleaning up after them, I don't see any reason why they can't be in the parks. I used to take my dog to the park, and my dog weighs 7.5 pounds, but he used to like to go over there. And does that also mean no dogs at the community garden?
It's not a city park.
It's not?
Mm-mm.
Okay. I think we need to have a dog park. And I also think that these 800 houses they're building south of town, I think they should have their own ways in and their own ways out, and they shouldn't be wearing out South Gain Street and Osteen. Yes,
Tanya,
sir.
we're on the ordinance for,
Another subject.
that's another
Oh.
subject. But
I'm
we'll
back.
get to that.
Okay.
Thank you. Next.
Kennedy O'Keefe.
Good evening. My name is Kennedy O'Keefe and I live at 145 Westbrook Circle. I would just like to start, I am not here to argue. I am simply here to speak my opinion. With that being said, I am extremely disappointed that anyone would ever consider the possibility of banning large animals from a public park. As a child who works with large animals, I understand the feeling with working with large animals. But Rusty Spurs has not only worked with them, but worked with them enough where these large animals are able to be rode with inexperienced people and completely be safe. Not only be safe, but also be aware of their surroundings. I have heard that some people are concerned about the digestive waste happening during the water rides. And I'm so sorry to break it to you, but there are lots of wildlife, even human beings, that have digested their waste in that water. It is a part of our human nature. As a child who's taken a water ride, I can confidently say these animals are very well trained and mean absolutely no harm. They should not be a concern. I believe most of us can agree that the Rusty Spur has been pretty efficient at bringing our community closer together. With all that being said, I hope that you value my opinion, putting my age aside, and I too live in this community and value small businesses. Thank you for your time, and I hope you take this opportunity to see an opposing viewpoint. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Megan O'Keefe.
Megan Bracey for the record. 145 Westbrook Circle, Oak Hill, Florida. Good evening, members of the council. I'm here today to express my strong opposition to this ordinance. As a born and raised resident of this community, I am deeply saddened this proposal is even being considered. In my opinion, this ordinance appears to be driven by personal interest, particularly among those who reside in close proximity of this park. I have not seen a large amount of individuals for this ordinance that are for it. How many incidents have occurred over the years? Do any of you know? The Rusty Spur brings a unique and valuable dynamic to our city, and I have personally experienced the joy it provides. I took a river ride with my children, and these well-trained animals allowed my 9-year-old son to ride confidently alone. The business owner, Brittany, ensures the area is cleaned up after each use and does not occupy an excessive number of parking spots. During our river ride, a birthday party ensued without any issues. In fact, the birthday party was extremely excited to see these horses. People from neighboring counties visit our small city, specifically to experience the river ride by the Rusty Spur. As a council, you all have an obligation to do what is for the greater good of this community. From the looks of it in this room, it appears the people in this town do not agree with this ordinance. Those same individuals voted you all in the seat that you're currently sitting in. They look to you to do what is right and to listen to them. I'm respectfully requesting each of you to carefully consider the impact of your vote. Consider working with this small business owner to find a mutually beneficial solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Kayla Ingram.
Kayla Ingram. I'm resident of New Smyrna Beach. at 164 North Cucumber Lane. As an administrator of a small private pediatric center for students with disabilities that's opening in New Smyrna, we are relying on the Rusty Spur to be able to send our students to her to provide therapeutic horse services that they may not get somewhere else. And as my daughter has experienced and I have experienced myself, we have a deep love for the Rusty Spur and also for Brittany Olson. Not only is she a veteran, she has also served our community and she has protected us that are standing here today. So I am deeply opposed to this, and I would like you to please think about the children that are in this town and their future. And a lot of them cannot afford this unless it was through this service that Brittany is offering. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nate Ingram.
Good evening, members of the council. My name is Nate Ingram. I'm a real estate broker with Extra Real Estate in New Smyrna Beach. I also do a lot of business here in the Oak Hill community. Currently working on a rather large 7-figure project right here in town. So even though I don't live here in Oak Hill, I would say I kind of have a vested interest in what's going on here, the success of the community. What troubles me about this ordinance is it really started because there were some complaints about a specific business. And anytime you take government action because of a very specific and narrow complaint like that, and then develop it into a broad, overarching policy, we then have a lot of unintended consequences here. We have a lot of people who are suddenly caught up in trying to control horses in the park, where now we're limiting dogs in the parks throughout the community. And I think we really need to examine that as a community itself, because what do we want to advertise to people coming here to our community? Do we want to advertise that we're very narrow-minded when it comes to pets and recreation? Or do we want to be open and willing and encompassing for people to come to our town? I've found Oak Hill to be open and encompassing. I know quite a few of you. I've met with you. I've talked to you. You all have Oak Hill's best interest at heart. There's no doubt about that. But I think what we're trying to do here is trying to swat a mosquito with a sledgehammer by trying to limit the access of the horses to the water. And so by creating this new ordinance, by banning all pets, not only is that at Sunrise, but it's the rest of the parks throughout the community. We're a dog owner myself, where I have a couple little Australian Shepherds that love being in the parks. I then wouldn't be able to bring them here to the community. We travel down here quite a bit by boat, love Goodrich's, I mean, the best seafood around. I'm from Cedar Key, so I know a little bit about good seafood, but I can't bring my dogs anymore. We can't go to the park. We can't bring them into the community if you ban the pets from the park. And so what I urge you to reconsider is this ordinance, while well-meaning in intent to certain select segments of the population here, there's a lot of unintended consequences I think you guys are going to see. And when I bring people into this community to buy a home, one of the things they ask me is, hey, is this a pet-friendly community? Can I bring my dogs or my cats or whatever their pets are? And I'm going to have to say, well, no, they actually just passed an ordinance restricting that. And it's actually something that when we search for properties on the MLS, it's actually a term that we use to look for communities for people to come to. So I know that my time is wrapping up. I could go on and on about this, but I strongly urge you to reconsider this. There's better ways of managing an issue with pets, whether it's horses or cats or whatever, than passing this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ingram. Next.
Brittany Olson.
Hello, I'm Brittany Olson. I own the Rusty Spur. I'm not going to give my address because I'm a recently retired police officer, so I don't want that to be public. I've been in business nearly 2 years. I have been renting the horses out at that river for almost 2 years. You have not had a single incident of my animals there. You can shoot guns off my animals. Fireworks can go off by my animals. Kids can run up to them, jump onto them, touch them, slide off their butts like a slide, stand up off of them, cannonball into the water onto them. I have conceded the last commission meeting to not congregating in the park. I now bring my animals directly into the water, which is state jurisdiction. I do have people meet me at the park, but my animals walk into the pathway, stand into the water, and they wait for riders to come. I have pictures upon request. Since the last commission meeting, I started immediately putting them in there. I bring a pitchfork. I clean up after myself, and I also clean up trash from other people. which includes beer cans, food items, etc. I leave it cleaner than when I got there. On Saturday and Sunday, a very specific example, I park my truck and trailer all the way at the end of the parking lot, and I counted 13 available parking spots on Saturday and 15 available parking spots on Sunday. And that is a busy time of year, we can all agree. Summertime, and it was the weekend. So I do not take up parking spots. That's not an issue. And that's not including the parking across the street as well. So my truck and trailer take up about 6 parking spots, but I also pull it way away from the pavilion and walk my animals down to the water. This ordinance is taking away from people that bring their dogs. I know, Mr. Ingram had just stated that, but that's not fair. When I'm there, there's people walking their dogs, bringing their dogs on their golf carts, having them go into the water as well. My animals love the water. If you ever got a chance to see them in there, they splash. When nobody's on them, they like to roll around. It's a beautiful thing. But that water itself is state regulated. That is not city jurisdiction. So the ordinance is just kind of a thorn in people's side. To be honest with you, it's not going to stop me from doing river rides because it's state jurisdiction. I will find another way into that river. My costs are a fraction of the cost, but there's nobody else in this area that's offering the service. The closest person that's offering it is a beach ride in Flagler County, and she runs a nonprofit organization. Her costs are a little bit higher so she can feed her animals, but my costs are a fraction to allow people of all socioeconomic statuses to enjoy this. We also created a petition online 2 days ago. It already has over 600 signatures on it. So the voice of the community is speaking, signing the petition against the ordinance that you are trying to enact into this community. I just don't agree with it. It doesn't make sense to me. It has never been an issue now until I started showing up, and it's just something weird that people see. So there's going to be some tension, but I haven't had any incidences, and there's not going to be any instances. So I appreciate your support.
Thank you. Next.
That's it, sir.
That's it?
Jessica Green.
Hi, Jessica Green, 475 Lazy Z Lane. I am a horse owner, and I did happen to look at one of the old videos, and I saw Brittany's presentation of her rental business, and I thought, wow, having a horse rental business at this day and age is actually very, very special. And Oak Hill should be very proud that they have this business. It's well, I keep saying the word special, but it is, because horses are heavy, they're can be dangerous, but if they're well trained, and it sounds like since she has the veteran status as well as the police status, those horses have probably gone through the police training that they do when they're out on the streets of Manhattan. And I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but that's probably the kind of training from what she said, with bags over their heads and people hanging off the saddles and guns being shot off of them. They're not going to get rattled. And that's what you have to have for a rental. It sounds like it's a very responsible business. Again, it's a special business for Oak Hill, and to not work with her and to keep that business special here is that would really be too bad. It's really too bad. Again, just like this lady was saying here, people who don't have horses, who have never been around horses, that may be like a once in a lifetime thing for them to be able to even reach up and pet a horse. They're huge, they're big animals, and to actually be able to get on them and ride them and feel the motion of them. That's why the therapy is so good for rehab for kids, because they have to learn how to balance on the saddle. It's a once in a lifetime deal, and to take that away from this small community is, it's in my opinion, it's kind of a travesty, where they're far and few between these days. Norco, California, and Aiken, South Carolina, big places in our United States that are well known for their horse communities. Thank you so much. Sorry.
Thank you.
Off on tangents.
Next.
Jen Ames.
It's in the paper too.
Good.
Hello, I am Jane Ames, 114 Northbrook Circle. I was born at Birdfish. I have lived here my entire life. I was riding horses in the river before there was even a park there. I do not know Brittany, but I 100% support her. And I have a teenage daughter, and I also have 4 teenage nieces. And they want to be able to access that river via horseback if they choose to. That should not be even up for discussion. This is a small town. We've done things perfectly fine up until now. I don't understand what the problem is, why this is even up for discussion. It's maddening. I'm actually mad about it, that we're even having this discussion right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Janet Shira.
I'm not, if you look at the notes, that's for a different item.
Wrong person, sorry.
Hi, I'm Kim Ingram. I live at New Smyrna Beach. I'm not going to give you my address because I'm a cop's wife. I'm here to speak on behalf of Brittany and not bedding pets in the park in general. I'm a licensed mental health counselor. I have been for about 9 years now. If I'd actually prepared, because I wasn't going to speak, I could have brought you studies, and I've seen it in my practice, that show the benefits of our animals for our mental health and well-being. I think we all know it. If you have a pet, you know that if you're emotionally dysregulated, you can spend some time with your pet, you feel better. This also applies to people who don't have pets that use businesses like Brittany's. These horses can be very therapeutic when used for things like what Brittany does. She gives an opportunity for people that don't have their own pets to have these experiences, to get out in the sun, to get quality time in your city. That's something that I don't think the commission should take away from our community, from our county, from surrounding counties. We have people that come from all over to take advantage of Brittany's business and come to your community. So as a mental health professional, it's a great thing, and you really should reconsider this ordinance.
Anybody else?
That's it.
That's it.
Yes.
Have we missed anybody? Okay.
Mayor, if I may?
Yes, you may.
Okay. I love horses. I've been around them all my life. Had horses. I've owned horses, right? My sister was a professional barrel racer, right, and champion of Florida for many, many years, right? She taught many, many people that are out there riding barrels and running in the rodeos now, right? She passed away a few years ago, but she loved horses. She was extremely good with them, right? And she had countless horses, right? And they hurt her on occasion. She got kicked. She got stepped on. She got cut. She's been stitched up because of horses reacting to something that she couldn't control. It's a large animal. She loved them, all right? She took it, all right. What my problem is that with this going on, the city is liable, right, for the damages that occur in the park. The horses should be able to go in there. Go down to Bills Hill Road, go down to Beacon 42 and enter the horses down there. I'm all for that. You can still ride the horses in the city. You just can't.
It's muddy and swamp. These horses are
Excuse me.
It's my turn to speak. Right? The city is liable for any damages that happen in the parks, right? So, and that causes me problems, right? If there's some other place to ride and get in there, I'm all for it, right? Riding horses is a wonderful thing. I've done it since I was a child, right? And I love it, right? And I love horses. I love dogs and all that. But we can't always control them. But the city can't be responsible for somebody getting hurt in our city parks. That's my point.
Commissioner, may I speak on that real quick? Just because there is a state statute that covers anybody that voluntarily rides an animal in the state of Florida assumes all liability. The city does not have any liability. It was on my presentation in April. There is a Florida state statute that covers it, so they can't sue the city. They're also signing a waiver on behalf of their business.
There's countless lawyers that will disagree with you.
They can't disagree with the statute. They can't disagree with the state statute, Commissioner. They can't disagree with the state statute.
One at a time, please.
They will lose.
On Facebook, I was painted as the one that brought this up and created this ordinance. Furthest thing from the truth. What I did was when somebody called and said, I'm walking my dog. I have to pick up after my dog. Why don't they have to pick it up and send me a picture? Now, in your defense, I don't know that it wasn't picked up. But he is a citizen of Oak Hill. I was elected to do what's best for all citizens. I'll go on further and say, there is an individual, Mr. Stillings, that lives north of the park.
That would be you.
And that would be me?
Yeah. You
No.
live right next door to my mother.
I-
She loves the horses.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
But here's the problem.
It's you.
It's
You're
me.
the one that lives north of the park.
I'm not going to argue with you. I'm talking
I clean up
about.
after myself, sir. I bring a pitch truck. I clean up after
Wait,
myself.
it is my turn. And I'm explaining that complaints flow through every one of us if we get them and they go to the city administrator, because I am not going to tell or be blamed by a citizen that I asked you to do something and you didn't get it done. So it all goes to the city administrator. If he feels that this needs to be addressed, then it goes to the city attorney. And as a result, this ordinance was drafted. From the day one, when you made your presentation, I said to you, my concern is the liability. And you said there's a state law. There may be.
There is.
But does that, wait a minute, does that stop anybody like Morgan & Morgan or our good friend Dan Newland from filing a lawsuit? When that happens, the city has to spend money to respond. It's a waste of taxpayer money. And that is my own. There, you can take your horses down to Seminole Rest. Ample parking. They've got a kayak ramp.
That's a park. That's a state park.
And?
It's a federal park.
And?
Isn't that?
That's fine. Then I just want to support the local businesses like I do already. I send them the packages. I send them to the grocery box. I do rides to the grocery box. That's fine. Sounds like a good deal.
Sir, can I speak real quick? I'll come up there. My name's Austin Jones from 145 Westbrook Circle, and if I'm understanding it correct, y'all's focus is on the liability. So if I'm unloading a kayak and the kayak falls on my 9-year-old son and he gets very, very injured, y'all take the liability for that. So are we going to ban kayaks and stuff too? Like if we're going to ban liability, then we need to focus on liability across the board.
Right.
I mean, you can get hurt walking out of that door.
Or what about
So should we take the door off the hinges? I mean, I'm really concerned. Like there is liability driving here. There's liability in everything. But we're going to allow kayaks to be taken off the roof of vehicles overhead and not look at that as a liability, but we're going to look at the trained horse. Why can we turn a blind eye to one and not the other? Baseball bat. Whack. Liability.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
When I was negotiating with Jimmy Van to buy that park. He made mention that he didn't want to sell it to anybody else. He wanted children of Oak Hill to be able to enter the river because it was the only place left in Oak Hill.
Can I speak real quick?
No.
Mayor, may I speak?
Yes.
Jeff, did you fill out a form?
I didn't fill out a form.
Come on.
But you will.
Come on, Jeff.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
The city attorney's on the phone. Yeah.
Jeff Bracy, 196 Westbrook.
Quiet, please.
All right, listen. I dealt with this horse issue back in the 90s. Bought cows, roosters, ducks, geese, rabbits, and they wanted to run them out of town. Charlie remembers that. Mayor, I watched these people with these horses. I don't know this lady. I'm more afraid of somebody getting out of that park in Mary Louise, or that river park, or Cummings Park, stepping on a needle. Stepping on a needle and getting whatever is going to happen off that needle into their body. Okay? This is why it's a quality of life and a way of life in Oak Hill. We're not a city of Edgewater. We're not a city of New Smyrna Beach. And this is why I preached for years. It's the way of life and the quality of life. They live down here. They're here because they're free to ride horses. And they're free to go in kayaks. And they're free to fish. Mayor, they tried to ban them back in the 90s. Believe me, there was droves and droves of people come to these meetings. And we're upset. If you ban the horses, you're going to have to ban the dogs and everything else. Even the people who are in the service, veterans that have a service dog, you won't be allowed to come into the parks.
No, that's federal law.
Okay, but that's right, and you're right. But, Mayor, I think you really need to table this. I really believe you need to table this for a while. Let's discuss it. Just don't ban it. I'm serious. You guys, listen, it's an election year. It's not a good subject. You know how many votes are sitting in this building tonight? I'm just saying, okay? I'm being upfront with you. I put this thing to sleep for at least a couple months and then talk about it after November. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Cindy Davenport.
Cindy Davenport, 300 Palm Avenue, Oak Hill, Florida. I've listened to many discussions about the horses in the park at many meetings, and each time the discussion begins with the problem with the parking, the problem with the parking. And many minutes are spent about these big trucks and they take up a lot of parking. And then somebody says, and the children might get hurt. So I think you're using the children and finances to get an ordinance passed because somebody keeps complaining about the parking.
John Taylor.
My name's John Taylor. I'm at 240 Lagoon Avenue. I don't have any skin in this game as far as the horses or anything like that. I love them. The fact is it's obvious that the community is saying, don't do this. Period. That's how all this works, okay? Is we come in and tell you that we don't like something and we don't want it, and that's the way it goes. You get a call on the phone and get complained to. Fine, you bring it up at the meeting, go, hey, we're having this issue and that issue. But it's like you're not considering what everybody's trying to tell you. It's pretty obvious to me that they don't want this. So why are you considering it? Because you're getting a couple of phone calls. That's your job, is to take the phone calls. Sorry, you don't like it? Step down. Your job is to take the calls. Our job is to let you know what we want. That's what we pay your salaries. Simple as that. The man told you the truth. It's an election year. This matters. I don't give a crap about that. What I care about is when the community says something, you need to listen. Not one or two people. One or two people are not the community. We are the community. We care enough about this to be standing here talking to you. Listen. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Charlie Dean.
Charlie Dean.
Charlie Dean, 157 East Halifax. I hear everybody talking about their horses. I've probably been in the horse business probably longer than anybody that's in here on an everyday basis. I was the last saddle maker for the United States military, okay, back in the early 70s. So I've been around horses ever since then. I've had a saddle shop since then. Horses are dangerous, but horses are also nice animals. And it depends on how you treat a horse. If you get a wild horse, like Mr. McGee said, yeah, you can have a horse that freaks out. But you know what? I'm more worried about a chihuahua running up and biting me on the ankle than I am a horse.
Absolutely.
Okay? And you're worried about liability. If you're worried about liability in the park, you need to close them and lock the gates, because you're responsible for everything in there, from the playground equipment to the baseball field to the pavilion. Anytime anybody walks in that park, if you're worried about liability, you're liable. Okay? So, to me, if you're going to close it down for a little bit, for one or two, you need, liability is what I'm hearing is the issue. You better lock all of them and keep everybody out of the parks. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Yes, sir. You have the floor.
Do we, as a city, currently have a liability insurance policy for our parks?
Yeah.
All properties are supposed to be covered.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody got hurt by the dog, we already have a policy?
Yep. Yes.
Or by a horse or anything like that?
Doesn't matter.
So we're already paying it?
Yes.
I got you.
The only thing that would be paid is attorney fees.
Right. And don't we have that covered from League of Cities?
That's a good question. There is a policy, but if we took no action and knew that there was a possibility, my problem is I dealt with death in my past life. Then I became an insurance agent. Everybody in this room that drives a car should have liability insurance. Why? You're going to go out there and wreck and kill somebody? No. We all insure because it's a law when it comes to automobiles. We protect our own selves with liability policies in case we do something wrong. And all I'm saying is, and to me, it comes down to this. This commission is either going to be active or not going to do anything. And wait and hope like the Dickens that nothing happened. There's nothing wrong with this young lady that has this business. That's not the point. horses in the river is not the point. We have no control. Where we have the control, this commission, is the parks. And you know, like I said, I wrote insurance policies. Everybody has one, or should have one. And it's because we don't plan on having anything go wrong.
With all due respect, sir, right now you're the mayor. You're not talking about insurance. Right.
Yeah, I'm talking about the reason why the city needs to think about the liability.
But there's never been an
And,
incident before.
and it's,
We can't talk about what ifs.
wait a minute. I'll answer that.
Please.
Kathy Biddle wrote me and said she was really upset about this because she grew up here and rode horses all of her life.
As most of us.
That would, to use your dad's term, that was then, not now. Back in the day.
I know, but all of these
But
years-
there is no buts.
But you're talking about what ifs. I know this isn't personal with you, but there's a lot
Well,
of
it
what
isn't
ifs.
personal with me. I had horses
But there's a lot of what ifs that don't
and I had
exist.
dogs.
What if a homeless person attacks somebody in the park because they're always hanging out there?
Go to
What
Brook
if
Circle.
there's
They're there all day long.
There's a lot of what ifs. We can't worry about the what ifs. You have to do what's
What do you
best for
mean
the
you can't
community.
worry about it?
You
You
can't.
listen, the deputies try to arrest all these
I know they
cases.
are.
You know, I mean, they're trying to do their job, and unfortunately, there's too many of them
There is.
on dope.
Yeah. But there's a few people that are complaining, and there's a lot of people here in support of
Well,
this.
hey,
Where are the people that don't want it?
Yeah, where are they?
Where are the
They can
complainants?
show up. Clear.
They're putting you in a rather
how
tough
many
spot.
of you in this room right now are citizens of the city of Oak Hill? They got people raising their hands, and they told me they didn't live here. Geraldine?
I didn't raise my hand.
I think personally that this ordinance is just absolutely overkill. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think that we need it. We have liability insurance. We have liability insurance for a reason, and that's in case somebody gets hurt at the park. Irregardless of what the circumstances is, whether it's they fall off a horse or they fall out of their car or they get hit by somebody driving a moped or whatever. That's just the way it is. That's just part of the cost of doing business. And I think that this absolute ordinance is absolutely unnecessary.
Yeah, I'd like to withdraw my second, and let's take some more time, especially about the dogs being in the park.
I don't think it needs to be come up at all. I would vote no.
The second's been withdrawn?
Yes, sir.
Steve? You want to withdraw?
I still
yours?
have a liability issue, and I understand completely. I love horses. I've rid horses as long as anybody in here, right? My sister was. I love horses. I love animals. I'm the big dog. I love big dogs. Hey, I'm talking, right? But none of you out there, you have an opinion, and you're entitled to that. But none of you are accountable for what happens. We are accountable. We are accountable. You can. I hear what. All right. I can do everything you said. Somebody gets hurt. You don't get sued. The city gets sued, right?
The horses aren't allowed in the park, but the crackheads are allowed to sit at the picnic tables and shoot up. Well,
If there's no such.
make it make sense, gentlemen. Make it make
It's our
sense.
money.
It's
our
money.
You have liability insurance,
Okay.
and I don't see where the problem is.
Can the city get sued for the children being on the horses in the water?
No second. Motion dies.
Thank you.
Is there any other motion? Hearing no other motion, let's move on. City planner. Would y'all like to have a 5-minute?
I would.
Because you want to, okay. We have a 5-minute break.
I just want to say thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Joe. That was amazing.
Hey, Geraldine.
Hey, how are you? You good? Hey, Austin. How you doing? How you doing, buddy? Good. Sorry, I have to go for the dogs.
That's what we
I've been riding horses. I know.
Somebody sooner or later is going to get
Why can't they go to St.
And when it happens, hey,
Why can't we do something?
I mean, we can still go, I mean, there are other places to ride.
Well, I think between the parking with Goodwin, parking with the horse road, they create
As
the
much as she says that we can't be liable, there's 8 million lawyers that stand up there
Anybody
going.
can sue anybody.
it was discussed. That's all, and that's all you can do.
Do your tax-paying citizens a favor. Make sure the government, the insurance policy that this place has, this city has, covers businesses being operated inside city parks without a permit, because currently we're requiring. So make sure that it's like Tom Ritter is emotional to animals. You get anybody's animal, nobody cares about animals. Make sure that business covers businesses being conducted.
Yeah, we discussed that too. We discussed that too. And they're using our property to access the river. I know the river has no complaint. I think we've gone too far with the dogs. I mean, I'm a dog lover. Oh yeah, they have that. No, we have a leash law. So every dog in the city has.
Mr. Bond.
You didn't have a leash.
Mr. Bond.
Yeah. If they're on a leash.
When I got all these calls, I called and I said, okay, what about
Mary
if we
Louise
require
Forest.
a business license?
There may be a sign
and
in
a
that
per
park.
event
But we
fee.
want them to be able to go down to the river.
That wasn't one of the options.
You can't imagine
The
having.
attorney drew up that ordinance.
I think we need to go back to the lawyer and the drawing board. No, right. You can't.
You can you? Then we just have a food truck thing that got.
I don't think actually pass it.
Yeah, I think they have to have a permit, right?
They have to get a permit. We discussed that. We discussed the doing business on city property.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily opposed to her, have an insurance policy that covers the whole city. Right. That wasn't actually discussed today.
But we could actually.
Alternatives?
We could make it.
Okay, let's bring the commission meeting back to order.
Yeah, that would be good.
Let's see, city planner, 104 East Aerial Preliminary Development Plan.
All right, Mike McGrath, City of Oak Hill. Mr. Green has proposed to do a preliminary development plan for our mini warehouse and office buildings. So I'm just going to give you a brief rundown on what the activities were in the last month or three, give or take. So basically on May 16th of 2024, the PLDRC approved the special exception. On June 10th of 2024, the commission approved the variance for the mini warehouses and office building. Also on June 10th, 2024, the commission approved the special exceptions with conditions and stipulations of the following. The property has to have a fence around the entire property. It's got to have 24-hour surveillance. The business will be gated from 10 a.m. to approximately 10 p.m. I'm sorry, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., my apologies. And basically on July 18th, 2024, the PLDRC approved the preliminary plan. And if you have any questions, Mr. Green is in the audience. I believe we may have Mr. Graham Young on speaker.
Yes. The planner, Graham Long, is here if you need to ask any questions of him.
No, it seemed pretty thorough to me.
He's implemented what we requested in the discussion back in June.
That is correct. That was the stipulations that you gave were the conditions of the special use. You guys were adamant about the fence, the security, obviously, and the gated community and the hours.
And he's paid all the
Mr. Green
fees.
has complied with that.
Yeah, he's paid all the fees.
That's correct. The day he is paid, he just paid approximately an hour and a half ago. He was up to date.
Did the check clear?
That's what I'm worried about.
I make a motion, we approve.
Yeah, I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion from the commissioners?
No, I think he's done above and beyond.
Yeah, he's done it. Hearing none, call for the vote.
Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindlaw?
Yes.
Commissioner McGee?
Yes.
Commissioner Gaetano?
Yes.
Commissioner Hyde?
Yes.
All right, next on the
Go.
agenda. Thank you. Nothing from the city engineer? Nothing from the sheriff's department? City administrator matters. Fall ball, baseball field agreement with Oak Hill Sports Club.
Yes, sir. What you have before you is an agreement with the Oak Hill Sports Club to do fall baseball during the fall season. So it's for you to review and decide if you'd like to approve. And if so, we'll have it signed by the other parties.
This is the same agreement that we had for the
spring season?
Yes.
For the spring season?
Yes, it's just with the different dates for
The dates
fall.
are different. Period. Okay. I'll make a motion, we accept the ball field rental agreement.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion from the commissioners.
Nope. I think
None?
we need to
Nope.
keep the ball fields going as much as we can.
Get those
Okay.
kids playing.
Call for the vote.
Mayor Gibson?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindlaw?
Yes.
Commissioner McGee?
Yes.
Commissioner Gaetano?
Yes.
Commissioner Hyde?
Yes.
Okay, old business, 591 Cherokee Boulevard.
Yay.
Hey, if we don't have to discuss this again, I'll be happy.
Yeah, this will be the last one.
2024-16 resolution.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, so this item, the last direction was to see if the association would be willing to accept the property in exchange for removing or withdrawing the fees. We took it to them and they have accepted the offer, so they're willing to accept the property in return for waiving the fee. So this is coming before you for approval for doing the transfer of the property.
Make a motion, we approve Resolution 2024-16.
No, second.
The only discussion I have is they waiving that homeowners association fee of, it's up to what, $10,000?
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is a benefit to the city rather than trying to go to court or try
Which
to
the
sell
property was not.
Yeah.
So we always got to be careful when somebody wants to give us something. There's a reason that they
We'll
want to give it to
know,
us,
we'll
you
know
know?
next
Yeah,
time.
the county gave us this piece of property.
Yes, they
Thank you. All right, call for the vote.
Dixon?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Linlaw?
Yes.
Commissioner McGee?
Yes.
Commissioner Gatagano?
Yes.
Commissioner Hyatt?
Yes.
Motion passes. Okay, new business, final step shelter memorandum of understanding.
First step.
First step shelter. So this is the to address the new law that comes into effect October 1st, where cities have to provide a place for their homeless to go into, and then they have to provide services, mental health services, somewhere for them to stay. Other cities within Volusia County have partnered with First Step.
Scott, are you still on? I think he has to unmute. Yeah, I'm still here. Okay.
Sorry about that. Sorry. We're talking about the First Step shelter. So other cities have entered into an agreement with the First Step shelter to provide services that would pretty much take care of that, of meeting requirements for that law that goes into effect in October. Met with the executive director out there, did a tour of the facility, and got the paperwork that's necessary for us to also become a partner with them, so that our homeless people would have somewhere to go to. If the sheriff should ever pick any of them up, they could take them there. There are certain requirements that they have to meet. They could either be there just for overnight. They have a program that they would actually take them in if they meet their requirements and assist them with finding gainful employment with the hope to get them on their own feet so they could eventually find housing for themselves and take care of themselves and no longer be homeless.
Which is a great idea, but will they do it?
They said they had to be agreed to it, that they had to agree to the thing.
Yeah.
They're not forced to stay there. They can leave at any time they wish. So it's really up to that individual when they're taken into that program to make the program work for them.
Basically, it covers us, though.
Yes.
I have a question on responsibility of the city, and it says the police department will refer individuals to First Step. Is the sheriff's office in agreement with that?
Yes,
they
I
will do that?
reached out to the sheriff to make sure that that's something that they will do, and it's at no additional cost to the
Okay,
city.
that was the next part of that. Is that it's gonna cost us
Thank
more.
you.
Right, and then this is probably going to have to go to Scott. I don't understand paragraph 11, construction of terms. Is a disjunctive is considered the same thing as a conjunctive, and a misgender is the same as a other gender, and
He probably doesn't understand
blew
it
my
either.
mind. Singular shall be the same as plural. The plural, the singular. What is that?
Scott's still there.
This is Scott. I think that language is sometimes inserted in contracts just to say if we say to refer to, if there's a language in the agreement that says is in the plural sense where they or them, it also means to the singular. Or if you say something to him or her, it applies to anybody. So not to try to get out of the contract by saying, well, that provision applies to multiple people, not one person. It does apply to one person, because then that's what that language is intended to cover.
Yeah, it pretty well covers everything in there. It says whatever you think this one is, it means the other thing too. Okay.
That's we and they.
Thank you, Scott.
Read that thing
Provide
3
a
times.
little bit of background about the First Step Shelter. I don't know what all's been said. There used to be a federal case that said that you could not incarcerate somebody for sleeping in a public park unless you had an alternative place to put them that was a reasonable accommodation, and maybe worded differently. But for instance, you couldn't put them places that were church shelters that had a lot of rules and regulations and restrictions on who could qualify to go in there would not constitute available beds. It was actually deemed cruel and unusual punishment under the Constitution. So the First Step Shelter, the purpose of that initially was to create that location where if local governments wanted to remove people, homeless people from sleeping in the parks, they could do that. They had a place that did not have the religious rules or anything like that, that would be deemed an available location to place these individuals so that we could remove people from the park and not violate that federal court case. If you've been paying attention, you know that there's several federal court cases that have been overturned. That's one of them. Recently, the Supreme Court overturned that and said it is not cruel and unusual punishment to go through a process of removing somebody from a park, ultimately leading to an arrest, unless you had an alternate place to go to. It was not a violation. It was a Washington or Oregon case. It was not a violation of the cruel and unusual punishment clause. That's kind of the context of the of how First Step Shelter came to an existence, and the status of the law recently changed regarding that. That doesn't mean I don't think First Step Shelters is not a good idea. It is a good idea. And I know Jerome and I talked about this. We are under contract with the sheriff to provide these services. And I don't know if Jerome had a chance to look into it. Again, I talked is, would our fee to the sheriff cover the cost include the cost of taking people to the First Step Shelter? Because it's my understanding that there's a relationship between the sheriff and Daytona Beach. So the sheriff does help fund the First Step Shelter through Daytona Beach.
Yes, Scott, I reached out to the sheriff, and it does, there's no additional cost if they should transport homeless from Oak Hill to First Step.
Okay, but the county's payment to First Step through Daytona Beach would not include us, since we're under contract with the sheriff to provide law enforcement services. We would still have to support First Step Shelter to have this place available to us to use.
Yes, we would still
There is
have
a fee
to.
that's
we have to
associated
pay
with it.
them.
We'd still have to pay a fee to First Step.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's, yeah.
$3,000
But as far as what
$3,000.
$3,500 we currently pay the sheriff, there would be no increase in what we pay to them for the
And
service.
so they would do the transport and the cost we pay them.
Correct.
Okay.
Me personally, since the city does not have the facilities or the staff to be able to provide this service, I think
I
this
do
is
too.
a great
It's the
addition
answer.
to be able to
The
do that.
answer for us,
homeless
yeah.
people.
I think it's a good opportunity
Yeah.
to help people that need and want
Yeah,
to help
exactly.
and are willing to do something about it. Then this is a great opportunity.
If they want the help, it's there. If they don't, then
You can't
We've done our best.
yeah.
Can lead them, but you can't make them.
Exactly. Do you need a motion?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I'll make a motion that we approve the MOU for the First Step Shelter for the fee of $3,507.58.
Second.
second. Oh, that's Steve.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the commissioners? Call for the vote.
Good deal.
Gibson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Linlaw.
Yes.
Commissioner McGee.
Yes.
Commissioner Gatagano.
Yes.
Commissioner Hyatt.
Yes.
The next item under new business, Oak Hill Town Center Community Development District.
Yes, sir. We received an application from Oak Hill Town Center to form a community development district. This is something that the city is unfamiliar with. It doesn't have the staff to actually do it.
You may help you some here, Jerome?
Yes.
A little bit?
Yes.
Yeah, this is a community development district is something that is called CDD. It's under state law. Probably the best way to kind of look at this is like a maybe a super powerful HOA. That'd be the best way to look at it. It is a financing mechanism that developers use to finance the cost of construction of the project and also to maintain and repair and replace the amenities in the project going forward. And some of that's similar to what an HOA does. You know, you get HOA dues and they make, you know, if you have private roads, they maintain the roads, they maintain common area. But what a CDD does, it can levy assessment and it can actually levy a millage rate up to 3%. Now, it doesn't impact our finances at all. Like the millage rate, if they decide to create a millage rate, levy a millage rate, that doesn't get applied to our millage rate. As you know, we can only levy 10 mills by law. Their millage rate does not get applied to ours to apply to that 10 mil cap. So the creation of the CDD, to my knowledge, does not impact us at all, the city. It's just a financing mechanism, and it's similar to an HOA. It's just a grander HOA with more authority, more ability to raise revenue and to get into the construction aspect of it. I think the reason it's on the agenda is we're going to have to go forward and review, have a hearing pursuant to the law to review this. The statute outlines the law. I have never been involved with the review of a CDD before. I don't think city staff has. To my knowledge, the city commission never has. At least since I've been representing the city, it's never come up. I've called some other cities, talked to the Port Orange city attorney. Since he's been there, he hasn't dealt with it. Talked to the DeLand city attorney. He has dealt with it. They've always hired outside consultants to help them review it.
I think it's mainly in Orlando in that
And I
area.
talked to Daytona, and they've handled it some in-house. Sometimes they've done outside consulting work.
There's one also called Indigo CDD.
What's that?
Indigo CDD, that's Volusia County.
It can either be Volusia County or Daytona. Indigo's in Daytona. I don't know if it's Volusia County or, I know the Daytona city attorney referred to Indigo as one of them. I know that's in Daytona now.
The website has it as Volusia County.
It could be in it. I don't know, you know, I don't know if it was created under Volusia County before Daytona expanded to that area. You know, I don't know. But there's one provision in the law that I saw that said you basically, you know, CDDs are typically done on very large parcels. Under state law, there's a threshold. 2,500 acres or less, the developer applies in the jurisdiction where the property is, whether it's the city or the county. Over 2,500 acres, and the jurisdiction to review and approve a CDD lies exclusively with the state agency. It's called the Florida Land and Rural Water Commission or something like that. And we have 90 days from the receipt of the petition for the CDD to decide to refer it to the state agency to let them review it. And basically let them review it, let them approve it, or we're going to have to decide what's the best process for us to do it. You know, I can get names of consultants that could help us. I don't know if our current consulting planners have dealt with this before. Maybe they have. but it's a process that I'm kind of unfamiliar with, but it is it's a formal process outlined in the law that we're going to have to go through unless we refer it to this state agency to do. Obviously, if we refer it to the state agency to do the review and approval, then they're the ones who are going to approve it. I think we can provide comment to the state agency, but we won't be the one approving it. If we don't refer it, then we're going to have to, get a process together to review this CDD application. But the applicant has to, there's a filing fee of $15,000 that we received that we could use to pay for the cost of retaining people to help us go through this process. It's not a process that I've ever been through. This process the city has never been through. That's why the only reason it's really coming for discussion is to get, from my perspective, direction from the commission. Do you want the city to be involved in the review and approval of the CDD, or do you want to refer it to this state agency to let them review and approve it? Now, that state agency has exclusive jurisdiction over all CDDs that are over 2,500 acres. So probably they're the one that has the most knowledge on how to do it. They've probably done it more than anybody else because they're these large CDDs, they're the ones who review and approve this stuff. But it's really up to y'all. I'm just looking for direction. It doesn't have to be tonight. We have 90 days to make that decision. But the sooner the better, so we can decide, start working. I can work with Jerome and get some thoughts back to y'all. If we're going to do it, do we want to go out and hire consultants? Do our current consultants, planners have the ability to do it? Those are just questions we need to go start heading down that road and come up with a process for y'all to review it. But if y'all's direction was let the state review and approve it, then we don't have to start doing it. And that's really the only reason that this item is on the agenda, is to get direction from y'all. If you want the city to handle it, or do you want to refer it to the state?
Scott, got Steve McGee, question on what responsibility or liability are we transferring over to the Florida Land and Water?
What they'll do is they will conduct the hearing and review the criteria to determine whether to approve or deny the CDD.
Do we get inputs into that?
Them is the ability to approve or deny the CDD.
Do we get inputs or dialogue with them on it?
We do have the ability to make comments with them on it, but we don't. If we refer it, then we don't make the decision.
They make the decision.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
We don't have to do anything tonight, then.
No.
Are you going to take public comment?
We can. Who wants to make a comment?
I put it in for Shira.
Okay. Please. Please.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. Before I get started with my comments, I just want to address something that your city attorney said. He said it's like a big HOA. I'd have to respectfully disagree with that. A CDD is a governmental entity. If this thing is approved, that PUD will have its own government. It will still fall under the city, so the homeowners in there will still pay taxes to the city, but on their tax bill, there will be another line item for the assessment, the non-ad valorem that this CDD will charge, as well as they're allowed to collect other fees. So it has a lot more power. The governmental entity for the first 5 to 7 years is the developer, and then it gets transferred over to the people who live there, and their elections are held exactly the same as your elections. So I just wanted to clarify that. It is not like an HOA. So if I could, as a neighbor of Oak Hill and as a consultant with extensive experience representing small local governments, I am here tonight to encourage you to carefully consider both what this developer is asking you to approve as well as what your city administrator is recommending that you do. First, with the agenda item tonight, your city administrator is recommending that you as a board vote to send the developer's request up to Tallahassee and have the Florida Land and Water Adjudicatory Commission make this decision for you. In doing so, this board would be knowingly giving away your right to make this incredibly important decision and leaving it in the hands of people with no ties to Oak Hill. I hope you would see it as not only your right to keep this decision local, but also your responsibility as representatives of both the people who live here now and the future residents of this PUD. The Florida Land and Water Adjudicatory Commission is comprised of the governor and his cabinet, people who have probably never even visited Oak Hill. It is known in much of the development circles in Florida that the commission approves these applications in a perfunctory manner. In other words, it's rubber stamped. As the legislation states, a city shall have no right or power to deny a petition that has been transferred to that commission. So a vote tonight to send it to Tallahassee means you live with their decision. The second part of this is how to move forward with the petition that has been submitted for the Community Development District. Your city administrator, in his staff report, states that the city has no experience with the CDD or the staff to perform the review. The application, as your attorney said, included a filing fee. That money could be used to hire a consultant who does have experience and who could work with your city staff to provide the city commission with the necessary information you need in order to make an informed decision. I urge you to ensure that whatever consultant you hire, whether it's your planning consultants or others, do no work for developers, because they've probably helped them set up CDDs in the past, and you should have somebody with no ties to development. The decision will have major consequences for the future residents of this planned unit development. It's important to note that residents within a CDD pay taxes to the city, as well as the non-ad valorem assessments to repay the bonds that fund all development-related costs, from planning to design and permitting and construction, among other things. They will also be charged operation and maintenance assessments. And because the Homeowners Association is a separate entity from the CDD, there will be HOA fees too. For the special non-ad valorem assessments, this petition specifically is estimating the future residents and commercial landowners within that planned unit development will be repaying a total of more than $88 million. Because of this future financial impact to the commercial landowners and residents, it's important to evaluate this petition carefully before making a decision, and it is critically important to keep this decision local. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank
you.
So that everybody knows, the filing fee was $10,000.
The law says it has to be 15,000, so I don't know why they said 10.
Okay, thank you. I saw a check for 10.
Yeah, they did send a check for 10, but the
Yeah.
law says it's supposed to be 15.
15, okay.
We have 2 more for public comments.
Oh, okay.
Danya DeWeese.
I gotta get up.
Take your time.
I have to.
Yeah.
After hearing all that, I would hope that you guys would make the decision yourself to hire someone with that 15,000 that we have to pay, and not let the government do it. The state of Florida, we don't want them doing our work. But as I started to stay earlier when I shouldn't have, I don't think that, what is it, 423 acres?
Yes, in that,
Okay.
yeah,
I've heard all kind of numbers.
yes.
But I think they should be able to drive themselves in and out a number of ways in case of an emergency, but I don't think they should be able to use ours. Are they gonna be in Oak Hill?
The assets, your access assets are off of US 1 and Bills Hill Road. They're not through Sand Road or South Gaines.
They're
or
not
Osteen.
going through there?
There's no access.
No.
Yay.
There's no
what I was
access on it.
concerned
That's all you
about.
wanted to know, isn't it? Yeah. Yay.
Thank you, Donya. Who else?
Charlie Dean.
Charlie Dean, 157 East Halifax. I was going to be a mute tonight, not say nothing, guys, really. But I sat up there whenever the vote was to change the zoning on all that. I was sitting up there. And it was supposed to be an equine community of 2.5 and 5 acre lots.
Yes, it was.
Okay? This is back in 20 years plus ago. Okay? It has morphed into now to 800 and something homes. You know, what are we doing? I mean, we let the contractors just come and tell us we want to change stuff, and so we change it. I mean, don't give up the city's right to make decisions on property that's going to be in the city. I mean, when y'all start doing that, we might as well disband the city and go to the county or go to the state.
Or
I mean,
Edgewater.
you know, we don't want that. We got a city commission here. If we have to go spend, we've thrown money away in the last 10 years, 15 years, 20 years on frivolous bull. Okay? This is something that's going to affect everybody, all the residents that's in Oak Hill right now, plus all the residents that this community or whatever will bring. You know, the town center, the commercial space, has anybody really looked at how much commercial space they're putting in there?
Like 75 acres.
You know how big 75 acres commercial space is?
Yeah, it goes all the way from down US 1 up to Bills Hill from right over here. Yeah.
Well, have you ever been to the pavilion?
Yeah.
That's pretty good commercial space, isn't it?
That's more than 75 acres.
Wrong answer.
Really?
Wrong answer.
Okay.
Okay.
Tell me, Charlie.
Okay. That's about 500,000 square foot, the commercial space up there. They're putting in for what, 3 million?
I don't remember what those numbers are.
retail.
It's
Okay, but it's commercial space. It don't have to be retail, it's commercial space. And it can be at any given time if it's commercial. It can be changed to retail. Okay? So, you're talking about, a place that's as big as the pavilion, what, 6 times? Come on. I mean, if 500,000 or 500,000 square foot there and over 2 million square foot there, you got it 6 times any way you look at it. So, thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. I think back to this property, and Jeff was on the commission. I think there was a lot of objection to Blue Origin purchasing that property. Everybody in this room, we want homes. Now you're getting homes. I mean, am I going to buy a 50-foot lot? Hell no. But there are people coming in this state, pockets full of money, and they'll buy every one of those pieces of property. And as long as it meets state law, this commission can say no, but will be sued. And guess what? The city will lose, just like New Smyrna Beach did. $2 million over those apartment buildings on the North Causeway. I'd rather spend taxpayer money on something that's going to help the taxpayer, not a frivolous lawsuit. It's just ridiculous. It's a waste. Waste of time, waste of money. Now that I've said that.
You have one more person, sir.
One more? Oh, pardon me, I didn't mean to interrupt.
John Taylor, 240 Lagoon. I don't really see I'm not sure I'm seeing the value of some expert we're gonna pay to come in here and evaluate this thing. I think you guys are plenty capable, should be. Again, it's pretty obvious that most of the people don't want it. I get the tax revenue, and hey, we're growing and all of this stuff, but 50-foot lots and all of that stuff. I mean, I go back. It's zoned for 2.5 acre things, I believe. Charlie, is that it?
That's what they proposed.
Yeah, I mean, how about we consider something like that? We all moved here to get away. I grew up in Volusia County. I worked my way south all the way from Daytona. I grew up in Daytona when it was great. Now I don't even want to drive up there. I love being here. I love it because it's quiet and it's safe for the most part. I mean, outside of somebody asking for money, or sleeping, in my yard or something like that. But that's pretty minor compared to what's going on. This is a big deal. You guys are giving power away that's yours. And if it were me, that's just my opinion, I would listen to the community and act accordingly. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor, just so we're kind of clear, this question is not about the project.
Right.
It has nothing to do with the zoning of the project, how many houses
Right.
can be built, how much commercial space there is. The only question that is there, is they filed a petition for a CDD, which is a financing mechanism for the project. They're not the issue on the number of lots and the commercial. All that's been approved by the commission years ago, I think. So this is a very narrow question. The question is, do you want the city to retain control over this question, not the zoning and how the project gets developed or anything like that, over the approval of a CDD? And it's going to be a very narrow question. It's not going to be, we don't like this project, we don't like all these houses. Ain't got nothing to do with it at all. We're going to have to make sure we focus on the review criteria set forth in state law, which will be very narrow when we do this review of the CDD, if that's the decision we want to go, which is fine. I did not interpret that there was a recommendation. There certainly wasn't a recommendation from me, and I don't think there's a recommendation from Jerome to send it to the state. You have an option. You can send it to the state or you can retain it. If we're going to retain to make that decision, we can use the $15,000 to get up to speed so we can make sure we handle that review process, the review properly and legally. But I just wanted to make sure y'all knew you had a choice. What choice you make is completely up to you. And I don't disagree with what the planner came up and said about this is a governmental entity. Yeah, CDD is, that's why we have to approve it, where we don't have to approve an HOA. It is a governmental entity within there. But it just raises revenue to operate, to pay the construction cost and to pay for the maintenance and operations. That's what I said. It's like a super HOA. It has more authority than an HOA typically does, because HOA just collects revenue to pay for common area maintenance and roads, whatever is the responsibility of the HOA. Whereas the CDD goes far beyond that. It gets into financing the initial construction of the infrastructure. And also, I was told by Daytona, their experience is about 1/3 of the CDDs they approve actually operate. It's created as an option for the developer. If they can't get normal financing, they can use the CDD to do financing. Many times, according to at least Daytona Beach, it ultimately doesn't get formed, it doesn't get used if they can get financing elsewhere. So the question is do you want the state to review the CDD? We have that option. Or if you want to review it internally and we retain control over it, then we'll start going that route and we'll start getting, coming back with you with how we think we should prepare for it and do it.
If Scott, this is Bill Winlaw. If the costs for the review exceed the 15,000 that the developer has put into it, is the city responsible for the difference, or does the developer have to finance or to pay the
The
difference?
statute says they only have to put in 15,000.
So if it's over 15,000, the city'd be on the hook.
Yeah, I guess if it came in at 10,000, the city would make like 5,000 profit.
Okay.
So.
Okay.
I have a question about that. Since there was only $10,000 given with the application, does that null and void the application?
I don't know if it null and voids the application. I would write back to them and say, if y'all say, look, we're going to review this internally, then we have not responded to the applicant. And I would write back and say, according to state law, it needs to be $15,000. Please either explain why you sent 10,000 or send another 5.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if they did send it, the extra 5, would that reset the clock?
To me, it would.
It should, yeah.
But I don't know.
I mean, arguably it could, but I mean, we could, in working with this law firm that's filed it for the developer, I don't think they're going to sit there and hold our feet to the fire and say, oh, you didn't do this within a certain time frame. But we can tell them, look, we're not setting the clock until, you submit a complete application. And I've gone through and I've generally read the law so I can understand it, and I saw that option to refer it, so I wanted to bring it to y'all. The statute may specifically say, there's a 90-day deadline to refer it. When I was reading through the law, I didn't see a deadline. I'm sure there is one. I didn't see a deadline for us to review and conduct the hearing. It's got to be there, but it has to also be longer than 90 days because we got 90 days to refer it. So I don't think it's going to be an issue time-wise. But, we can look into that issue come up with an exact calendar of when we do it. And my plan would be to be well within our timeframes, regardless of what number of days where you start the days.
Jerome, I have a question. Is it, do you believe or think that we could get competent, qualified consultant within the $10,000 to $15,000?
That's a good question.
Very
I'm
good
not
question.
certain. I would have to check
Scott,
with
do you have any?
My opinion would be the consultants know the law as well as we do. They know the city got $15,000. Pretty much be rest assured you're going to spend at least that $15,000.
Yeah.
At least.
That would be my opinion. And I've got the land and Daytona said they can give me the consultants they've used in the past. And there's also an attorney locally who does a lot of these CDD for developers that we could also contact and see if he might be interested. But before we do any of that stuff, I wanted to get a feel from the commission, how do you want to handle it? We don't need to start spending city money and doing this if we're just ultimately going to refer it to the state, because I'm assuming the filing fee then goes to the state if we refer it to them.
Personally, I would prefer that we make the decision based on competent information.
Me too.
Yes, definitely.
Me too.
Okay, we can do that. And I'm sure we can find people that can help us do this. And it may not be as hard. It's not that I read it and I said, oh my God, I can't figure this out. I've just never dealt with a CDD before. So before we start spending time and effort getting up to speed on the law to determine, we need consultant help here or consultant help there, I just wanted to get direction from y'all and let you know you have an option. And either way you want to go is fine by me. Doesn't matter. So
I think
if y'all want to do it in-house, that's fine. Let's do it in-house.
Mr. Mayor, we have one more person
who
wishes to speak.
Okay. Who?
Megan.
Megan Bracey, 145 Westbrook Circle. So it sounds like, well, first I want to say I agree with Janet, and I do believe it was staff recommendation, just like she had said. I don't envy any of you for sitting up there and making decisions. I do feel like when an attorney or a city manager does make a recommendation, if you are unclear on what you are deciding, maybe you should just take a step back and really educate yourself on this decision and whether or not you guys hold the power. You guys should be the ones making the decision. Like Mrs. Shira said, those people have probably never been to our community. The quality of life here for the residents is wonderful. I was born and raised here, just like a citizen said earlier. I was born and raised here, and I was born at Burtfish Hospital. So I know all of you love it here. That's why you moved here. And if you don't have the ability to say no, because I've been in that situation up there on the dais where we couldn't say no because the city was going to get sued. Maybe you have a way of talking to whomever it is that is coming before you in regards to what the citizens would like to see. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Mr. McGee has basically stated that he wants the city to review this. I tend to agree.
I think we all agree.
Yeah, I'd like to know more about the review process, Scott, and what that entails. Because the only advantage to this is the developer gets to borrow money and make every homeowner pay for it. And
only the homeowners in the development.
Yes, only the development. Yes, only the development.
So the people moving in there will know that.
Yeah, they
what they're
know.
moving into.
It's a different way of passing on the money.
Yeah, that we screwed.
They provided a disclosure about the city.
Yeah.
They'll know or they should know if they read the documents what they're getting
That's what
involved
they're
in.
asking us to do.
Do we need a motion on this or just consensus?
Whatever Jerome wants, I'm fine with their consensus. Like I said, it was just important for me early in this process to let you know you had a choice.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to, spend thousands of dollars trying to get educated on something and for y'all to say, if you'd have told us we could have given it to the state, or what would this cost? We'd have done that months ago.
Yeah.
So, but now you said, let's go forward, let's do it. Okay, let's do it. We'll have a good process.
I gotta say, I have mixed feelings about the whole thing because from the outset of it, it doesn't look like there's any real advantage to the city making this decision. Okay. All the development fees are going to be contained within the development itself. There's not going to be any fees coming out to the residents of the city. So us spending time and money deciding on that, to me, just doesn't really add up for me. If the rest of you all want to go with it, then I'm fine with that. That's my own opinion.
I want to go with it.
I think we ought to make the decision.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
3, 4.
Go with it.
Yeah, I'll go with it.
Okay.
I just wanted to make my opinion public.
Let's move forward with the city doing the review. Tanya,
Yes.
I mean,
I got
grab,
Danya?
Geraldine. Grab
She's
Geraldine.
already left. She's got an emergency at home.
Well,
Well, can I talk?
I'll make sure that, yes, ma'am. I'll make sure that she gets this because it's going to affect her.
Okay. Where did it go? One of my family members at home was watching live stream, and when we stopped at 5 minutes, it didn't go back on. It was probably a mistake, but it didn't come back on. And it's also marked April the 8th. So somebody messed up their figures, their numbers, and didn't turn it back on. And
You sure
at
they're
least all I
watching?
can say is, I
Are you sure they were watching the right thing?
Thank you for the information.
Clicked on the wrong
April
one.
8th
When
is
the,
on
when
there,
the
yeah.
meeting took its break, I stopped the live stream so that we wouldn't have all of this chatter going out on the internet. When I tried to restart it, it wouldn't.
Oh, it
So I
wouldn't.
started a new stream, and in my haste, I put the wrong date.
Okay.
Wrong date.
okay, you're fine.
30 lashes.
Okay, we've got that out of the way. City goals, none.
We have no
Net
goals.
President, Economic Development, Mike, you got anything?
Don't think, no, I have nothing.
Okay, thank you.
Wow.
Yay, Mike.
Public Works. Mr. Bell.
Come on down.
Mark Bell, Public Works Department. At the last meeting, we talked about the oak tree removal.
Please,
We
people.
can't hear.
At the last meeting, we talked about the oak tree removal on Putnam Grove Road. I did get estimates. I believe you guys have copies of those. I think the lowest estimate came in at 4,000. I know that I told you guys it was probably going to be somewhere in the $4,000 to $5,000 range. That was just, I was under the assumption that we were under the consensus that as long as it fell in that range, we were going to move forward with the work, was what we had talked about last time. There was also 2 other trees that came up on US 1, which are part of our agreement with DOT as far as maintaining the road. One of them is uprooted and the other one is dead. I got separate estimates as well for those, and I believe they fall under the threshold of the spending limit for Mr. Adams. Just to make you guys aware that those are going to be coming out as well. The next thing on there is the purchase of a John Deere Z930M zero-turn mower. We currently have 2 of them. The older one has about the same amount of hours as the Kubota mower that we have. In the past year and a half since I've been here, we've probably spent, I would say, somewhere in the realm of $3,000 to $3,500 trying to fix problems on the Kubota mower. I have spoken to the dealership, the head mechanic. I've tried to troubleshoot everything I can and gone off of recommendations with them, and we are still having problems with it overheating. The next step would be to take it to them and let them try to figure out why. But in the interim, it also needs a new deck on it. The cost of a new deck for that mower, with the prices I got from Kubota after we install it and replace other miscellaneous parts on it that you would have to replace, because that is just for the deck, we would be roughly in the $4,000 to $5,000 range just to replace the deck on the mower. The numbers that you have in front of you are for a new Z930M to replace that mower, because like I said, it's got about the same amount of hours as our oldest John Deere mower, with about $3,000 to $4,000 more problems than we've had out of the John Deere mowers. Current value on that mower, I've been told, is somewhere in the $3,000 to $5,000 range, whether we send it to auction or try to trade it in on the purchase price of the new mower. It still does function and does what it's supposed to do, but it has become very problematic, and trying to lean away from spending more money to repair it, plus also the roughly $4,000 to replace a new deck on it. I think it would be money better spent to replace the mower itself and salvage what we can out of the one that we still have while it works.
Any idea how many hours we have on that?
On that mower, there's roughly, I believe it's about 1,600 hours, which is actually not a lot.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think it would have held up better.
Yep.
Just don't make them like they used
the
to.
cost of maintenance on that mower, because it is a diesel liquid-cooled engine, it's about 3 to 4 times more expensive than the air-cooled gas motor John Deere's.
I say we move forward and get the John Deere.
I agree. Maybe we're pouring money down a rabbit hole, and if that's all the hours that
We got a
then
motion?
it's just gonna get worse.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion, we approve the purchase of the John Deere Z930R Z-Tech for $12,538.86.
A second.
Got a motion and a
Makes
second.
difference, but it's
Discussion?
actually a Z930M. There is a Z930R,
Oh, okay.
but the R is more expensive.
For race?
What's that?
For race?
No, I could explain the difference to you, but
Please don't.
It doesn't make a difference for what we're using it for.
I'll change that to the Z930M as in Mary.
We have a
You
motion
have
and
a
a second. Discussion?
Is this something that we previously budgeted for?
Probably not.
Probably not, huh?
That was a question I was gonna ask.
It sounds like we're getting close to spending that much money.
Just trying to keep the
Just
old one
on
going.
repairs,
Well,
yeah.
My thought was, because you also discussed tractor and bush hog.
Yes, sir. I have talked about tractors and bush hogs on numerous occasions.
And your estimate of cost on those two items?
A new tractor and a new bush hog is roughly in the $70,000 to $80,000 range for the two combined.
So to me, that item should be discussed at the budget. The tractor and the bush hog.
I see Jerome has on this cover sheet that this money would come from ARPA funds.
Yes, that's
Is that
where I was
right?
looking to get the funds from to purchase this since it wasn't budgeted.
Okay.
But like you said, the tractor and the bush hog, that's something that I have been in talks with James Moore when we were doing our budget to have that included in the coming year's budget.
Okay, yeah, because I figure any expenditure like that at this point in time with our calendar year, we should just put it in the budget next year. If, and see if there's money laying around loose.
I'm still waiting to hear back from John Deere as well to see, I don't know if they offer it for a government entity, but I have seen advertisements from them for.
Should be a
0%.
GSA catalog item or a contract.
I can address that. State of Florida has surplus equipment list, and I filled out the forms for them, and I think they gave me, you gotta get this done in 6 hours, they're gonna kick you out. So I filled out the whole form, I got some paperwork from Tasha and so forth. Applied for it successfully, and they said, oh, your documentation is here, we'll let you know in 45 days. So we're waiting.
But the loan program that they have offers 0% financing. I don't know if that carries over to a government entity or not, but that is still something I'm trying to explore with the John Deere rep. I don't know if the city would be interested in that. It seems like it's a pretty lucrative deal. I would love to borrow money at 0% anytime I could.
Is that actually going through John Deere now, or is it Ag Pro? I mean, I've got John Deere tractor and mower and all that, and it's all Ag Pro now. That's who I get service from and buy parts from. And
Well, I know that the Massey Ferguson tractors that we have, almost all of the parts exclusively come, they're all Ag Pro parts, but the John Deere stuff is actually still through John Deere. But like I said, I don't know if they offer that financing rate to the city entities or government entities, but I have seen it advertised for personal use. But it would be much easier to use their money instead of ours.
The book has 0, and I got it.
If we can budget for a certain payment, it would be a lot less expensive than trying to budget for $50,000, $60,000, $80,000 at a time.
Well, the purchase of the John Deere is up.
And did we look into the possibility of piggybacking on another contract and getting it from, I just see that there's just this one
The
bid
reason
here.
there's only one there, Mr. Catagano, is that is a across the board state pricing. It wouldn't matter what John Deere dealership I went to or who I called, it's all on a state contract, so everybody pays the same price.
And that because we have to have a John Deere, or?
No, we don't.
Is it a
have to-
preference?
We don't have to have a John Deere.
Is that a preference of yours?
Not so much of mine. I'll be honest with you, they had one when I got here, and they had a Toro mower, and they've had Skag mowers, and they've had Hustler mowers. So I leaned on Mr. Travis Allen a little bit. He prefers the John Deere mower over the other ones. In talking to Mr. Terry Payne, the previous public works supervisor, they had the least amount of problems out of the John Deeres. There's a couple of caveats that come with dealing with different John Deere dealerships. Everglades Equipment, who I went through this time, if we have a problem with that mower, they will bring us a loaner. They used to travel up to South Daytona Tractor for parts. Everglades Equipment has actually put a cabinet in our shop and is 100% consignment, so we don't pay for it until we use it. The great part is we're already short-staffed and we don't have to drive anywhere to get parts. They bring them to us. If it's a special order part, I order it, they bring it to us. But they are willing to work with us as far as loaner mowers. If it breaks down and it's something that we can't fix, or if it's under warranty, they will bring us one to use in the interim. I called a couple of other dealerships. Nobody was willing to offer that.
That's unusual.
The John Deeres are very easy to work on. As far as maintenance goes, they are about the lowest cost one I've seen so far to maintain, and very easy to work on. I don't necessarily have a preference one to the other. I kind of like the Kubota mower myself because it's a bigger mower and I'm a big guy. Can I do the same job on the John Deere? Absolutely. But I don't have a preference either way. It just makes it a lot easier with the other mowers in the fleet. We haven't had any problems with them. The cost of maintenance is lower, and the availability of the parts being delivered on site to us versus us to get to South Daytona and Tractor. It's about 45 minutes to an hour depending on traffic.
That's where I get my part.
Each way. And, that's
to drive.
That's a lot.
They've gotten better about shipping them directly to me.
Yeah.
So they used to, I have to go get them, but now they'll ship them to me.
Oh, will they? But it's a lot of wasted time just behind the windshield driving back and forth as well. With Everglades willing to do that and deliver the parts, that was why I got the quote from them. I reached out to several different ones.
Where are they located at?
Everglades Equipment, I'm trying to remember the name, but they have more than one location. This one, I believe, is over towards the Orlando area, but they have more than one location. But
So
they come-
I guess the only, it sounds like it's what you guys want, and you're the ones that are using it. But do we have to waive the purchasing procedure? to
Not if
vote
it's
on
under
this?
state contract, I don't think we do.
We went through the same thing, Mr. Catagano, with the previous one, and basically the purchase procedure was waived at the same time, because no matter how many dealerships I go to, the price is gonna be the same across the board. And that's my recollection of the last time when we purchased the other mower, was I think you guys got a consensus to waive the procedure and took a vote on purchasing the other mower.
Yeah, we would have to vote. I don't think it was a consensus,
Or
but
maybe
either
it
way.
wasn't. I could be
Yeah,
wrong.
it was a vote.
But just to make it right, and do it the right way, because if you
that
guys
is-
want, it sounds like you're pretty set on that mower, and, I don't really have any problem with it as long as we do it correctly.
I believe that's
That's
what
all.
was done the
Yeah,
last time as
so
well, was something.
that's
along
all I
those
have.
lines.
That's all I have.
That's all you got? Well, first we have to vote to waive the fee of getting more than one quote.
If you're going to have a vote, you'd have to have someone make a motion in a second.
Yep. That's where I'm
Well,
going.
I've got a question on that, because if it's a government contract, right, then they've gone through that process. It's like the GSA and those kind of things. They've gone through that bid process.
Is
to
Scott
come
still
up
on the
with
phone?
Yes.
The low bidder, or and best value, right? So that government contract piece is qualifies for
Should ask
going out
Scott.
and getting multiple bids.
I guess the only way it might
If
affect
we're
it.
piggybacking a contract, the motion should just be to piggyback the contract, because you're really not waiving bidding, you're just accepting someone else's bid. And that we're utilizing the bid they did. It's technically not waiving the bidding requirements.
Okay.
Is that what we're doing, piggybacking on another
On the
contract?
state contract.
State contract, yeah.
Yeah, that's the reason don't have to do individuals.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, I make a motion that we accept the state contract bid.
I'll second it.
Yay.
We have a motion and a second. Call for the vote.
You woke
Mayor
up.
Gibson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Linlaw.
Yes.
Commissioner McGee.
Yes.
Commissioner Gatagano.
Yes.
Commissioner Hyatt.
Yes.
Okay, next, comments
You
and
got it.
concerns from commissioners. I'm on a start.
So did we? Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. So you did the motion and the second and the vote to piggyback on the state contract.
Yes.
How about the vote to actually purchase the mower?
Boy, you're getting real technical here, Val.
Yeah, we need a motion to.
Motion to purchase the mower.
I'll second it.
We got a motion and a second to purchase
Is he gonna be picky
Call
on?
for the vote.
Mayor Gibson.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Fenwell.
Yes.
Commissioner McGee.
Yes.
Commissioner Gazzagano.
Yes.
Commissioner Hyatt.
Yes.
Thank you, manager. Okay, now to comments and concerns. I'm gonna start. We got a call from the county, reference the, our boundary agreement. They notified us that Edgewater had submitted a proposal. In the proposal, Edgewater wants to come down Cow Creek Road all the way to West Halifax.
No.
So when we got this, the next call that Jerome got was from Edgewater's city manager and said, there's a meeting with Volusia County and that we should be there. Well, we'd already been told that by Clay Irving from the county. So Jerome and I go, and they lay out this. This is a 15-year plan that they want to come all the way down. And I listened, and who was there was the county manager, Clay Irvin, the Edgewater manager, and their planning staff.
Where was the mayor?
Huh?
Where was the mayor?
Oh, he was there too,
Oh.
because I informed him of what this was.
But he didn't know otherwise.
No, he didn't have a clue. So during the discussion, they lay all this out, and I sat there and listened. And the first words out of my mouth were, hell no, you're not going anywhere south of Ariel Road.
Okay.
And they commenced to say, well, how about I said, look, if I'm not mistaken, Oak Hill has to come up with a boundary agreement. You have to come up with a boundary agreement, and we submit them to the county. Clay Irving said he will accept whatever we ask. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have a workshop, discuss the boundaries that we want in our boundary agreement. If we stick to Ariel Road, I want to go north of Ariel Road. Because we've got one piece of property that a gentleman has been working with, Mike McGrath. He was back in early 2000s. A number of properties were annexed by the city of Oak Hill. The county approved some and disapproved others. He thinks he's in the city of Oak Hill. He comes in and wants a building permit. You're not in the city. You're in Edgewater. So that's why I want to go north. I just want to go just north of Ariel Road, take all those properties in. The people don't have to come into Oak Hill. That's one of the things about the boundary agreement. It doesn't make you, as a property owner, come into whatever city you're in that boundary. Not to say that the cities can't file and make you, but right now, that's not the plan. Anybody like to have a copy of this? I was hoping that Geraldine would stay because I have 3 copies. And I've also got I've got 5 copies of Edgewater's boundary right now, their boundary. And their boundary doesn't come very far south in this rendering. So this is 2015.
Okay. I think we should tell Edgewater we want all the property up to 442. See how they like that.
Try it.
I think we should defend our boundaries because otherwise we're gonna be like Hollyville, who will become a tax island.
Mhm.
Because Daytona has done everything around them
Exactly.
and they can't grow.
Can't do that. We should not do that.
Also, got a notice today that the lawsuit filed by Mark Drollinger versus the city of Oak Hill has been denied by the circuit court. Circuit court said should apply on the final development plan, not the preliminary plan. Another waste of taxpayer dollars on a frivolous lawsuit. And I'm done. Vice Mayor?
I don't have anything.
Dave?
Nope.
Joe?
Nope.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Meeting adjourned. Everybody be careful going home. Thank you for attending and thank you for.
You want to see this? It's pretty.